I didn't know this, as dumb as this is, and I don't think a lot of my English speaking listeners will. Strat
Hmm.
means street. So
Oh,
Strat
yeah,
Museum is street museum. Dude, I
yeah,
read that. I'm like, yeah, fucking course it is. I had no idea. But sorry, that's just so dumb that
yeah,
I wanted to say that earlier and I forgot to.
yeah. No, yeah, of course.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Clean Break, a podcast dealing with art and business, powered by Always Art. I'm your host, Matt Gondek.
Yeah, so it's right now it's around 5 p.m., which is the end of the working day. But yeah, since well, what you said, like it's early morning there, and I'm in touch with a lot of artists all over the globe. So my day is never really ending.
Oh, yeah, that's a
Um,
good point.
and I'm always in touch with artists. I really need to tell myself sometimes to just put my phone away and to
Yeah,
just
I'm the
also enjoy the real life and not
yeah, it's
only
hard to
the
do that. I don't know,
digital
man.
life.
Like,
Yeah.
I always feel like because we enjoy what we do, we're not really ever working, but we're
No,
always working all the time.
it's that in a nutshell. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm sure like in a bit we'll go through my history and
yeah,
how
we're
I
gonna
got
get to
to the
that.
museum. Yeah,
Yeah,
how I got
yeah,
to the museum. But I think that's the motivation that drives a lot of us in being so into the scene and being into improving everything.
yeah,
You
absolutely.
with this
Yeah.
podcast, we with the museum here in Amsterdam, and everything in between. Yeah,
For everyone listening, David, so you're the art curator of the Strat Museum, which is the
yeah,
largest street art museum on earth. You guys are in Amsterdam, Netherlands, and we're going to be talking a lot about how the museum got started, what's inside the museum, and obviously we're going to get to how you got involved. But for everyone listening, maybe we can just briefly give an overview of what the Strat is. I know there's over 150 original works on view there, right? All
yeah.
by street artists.
So yeah, that was the beginning. I'm sure you found it somewhere in writing, but right now it's actually over 180 artworks on
Wow.
show. Yeah, and we're basically always shifting around. So it's always like new artists coming. Fortunately, then we need to put some old works in storage.
Hmm.
We're always trying to find new places within the museum. So, for example, like we have a truck hanging from the ceiling, which is like 26 meters high. I'm not sure, Matt,
Jesus.
if you can do the calculation, but what
Yeah.
that what that is in feet or
Yeah, it's
um,
like 70 feet tall, 26
yeah,
meters. Yeah,
it's times three,
somewhere
right?
around
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, like the space by itself is just remarkable and a joy to visit without the art. But like it's a great synergy with all the art and show, and we're aware of that. So we try to make the best out of every artwork, and the museum is a total. So that's why the collection is always shifting,
Yeah.
and yeah, right now it's around 100. I think it's even 185, almost going to 190 different artworks on show.
Got it. Yeah, I was looking online. I mean, I haven't visited yet. The space is massive. I think I read it's a old shipyard. Like they would store giant ships in this building, right?
Yeah, so going to the first part of your sentence, hopefully you'll be there next year.
Yeah.
You haven't been there, but we'll work on that for next year. But it's an old welding factory, so they
Oh,
used
got it.
to weld all the parts together. And the whole area is an old ship wharf, a ship area. So it used to be like the place where they made ships. And then it was abandoned for a long time. And that's also the DNA of this whole area. Because the outside space of the building used to be a hall of fame already for many, many years for graffiti writers from everywhere to just come here and
Hmm.
paint here at the building and the area.
Got it. Got it. Does
Yeah.
well you opened in 2020, which is during COVID, which I'm sure was a whole thing, and everyone has the same story with that. It delayed everything. But what did the public think when you opened this? Because like to you and I, like we love this kind of art. We kind of grew up with it. But there was a lot of people that like, oh, this is just graffiti, this is crime. What was the reaction from the public? Was everyone on board with it, or were there people trying to fight it, like glorifying crime, or like what happened with all that?
Well, not so much negativism as you describe, but I mean, like we're now 3 years down the road, and of course, it takes us quite some time to just build a name, to build like the name of the museum, build a legacy within the rich museum offers that we have here in Amsterdam and the Netherlands. So, in the beginning, it was just like really quiet,
Mm,
and yeah, I don't know. Yeah, maybe some preserved opinions about it, but from the start and right now, we see like all kinds of different visitors coming to the museum, from youngsters, kids, to like the old museum visitors that normally go to the more classic museums in the Netherlands. And from the beginning, I spoke to an elderly couple like in week 3 or 4 of the museum, and we had a hard time with in the beginning because we opened during COVID, not because we wanted. We didn't really have a choice. It was
mhm.
either we open or we'll never open. But I spoke to an elderly couple, and they visited within the first 4 weeks of the museum 3 times already.
Wow,
And
nice.
they said like we normally go to the Rijksmuseum, or yeah, I'm not sure if like the visitors or the listeners are familiar with the museums in Amsterdam, but they're more classical museums.
Yeah,
And they said like we're looking for something new, like we were done with the high expectations of the more classical works, like it's nothing is changing. And we saw it passing by in one of the newspapers, and we thought like let's give it a try, and we love it. Like it was the third time in 4 weeks that they got here
yeah,
in the museum. And we've really, because it's I'm here from the beginning, because we're here with the small team now growing, appreciating every visitor, every guest, as we call them, that walks through our door. It becomes much more personal. So I sat down with these people at the cafe. We drank a coffee together. I gave them the catalog of the museum, and yeah, that's what we try to do. Like that's what I aim to do with all the artists, to become like part of the Straat family, and that's also the DNA that we share with our guests while they visit the museum. From
yeah,
me, the team, the floor crew, anyone involved, we share that same passion.
yeah,
Of course, not like maybe as you and I always, but like we share the same passion. We want to make Straat that great place where you can visit street art and graffiti, and yeah, that's getting more and more accepted by the bigger crowd.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, there's things here in America we have beyond the streets, and it's let me start over and try what I'm saying here. I just love how you guys are a museum and you're taking
Hmm.
this art form that a lot of people still have a problem with, but you elevate it to where it's in a museum. And I just love that you're giving it this proper platform for people to like where an elderly couple can
Yeah,
come there and feel they're completely outside of our world, but they can come there and just learn and feel completely safe and like it's in an elevated environment. I just think that's incredible. You said earlier if
yeah.
you didn't open in 2020, you wouldn't have opened. What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, it's a privately funded project. Right now, we are figuring out like how we can become a public museum or become part of the museum association. But it's a privately funded project, and with that comes, of course, money.
Yeah.
Money that needed to be invested in the whole project. And in times of COVID, a lot of people were losing money,
Yeah.
and yeah, the stakes were high. Lots of money was invested, and yeah, it was either it was either we open right now, or yeah, we can't really wait much longer. Then it will
Yeah.
just be the end of it. And yeah, it was a very tense time, but
Yeah.
we survived, and it's great that right now, like if you've sort of like erased the first year, we were mostly closed through lockdowns. Look at the last 2 years. it's
Yeah.
great how we're doing right now and how many visitors we get.
Yeah, great. That's good. Do you happen to
Yeah,
know what year that they started talking about doing this? Like obviously, okay, you opened in 2020, but it's not like
yeah.
someone the day before was like, let's open a museum.
No, it started in I think already back in 2015.
Oh wow.
The
Okay.
idea, yeah, 2014, 2015, the first works were made, and the warehouse was first used for a flea market, like a local flea market
Oh,
that the owner of the museum also owns, and it's still active. So the storage of the flea market was inside of the space.
got it. Who owns the
Um,
museum?
yeah, the yeah, that's the same owner as the flea market. His name is Peter Hoogwerf. Peter Hoogwerf is a local guy from just north of Amsterdam.
Got it.
And yeah, so the thing is, we had the storage of the flea market, and in the winter months we had the flea market inside. They had the flea market inside, but
Yeah.
they were sort of obligated to do something more creative, more cultural with the space, the huge space, in order to keep the place for that use. Um, and then he invited a couple of artists that were painting outside the building to make something for the inside. And a very long story short, that idea just evolved in creating the biggest street art museum in the world, with teams joining, leaving. I actually already joined in 2016,
Really?
but I'm sure that we'll come back to my personal story in a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2016. The curator back then invited me to come and take a look. It was closed for the public. Everyone knew in the scene that we were working on something, but no one really saw anything before.
Yeah.
And when I got here, Cobra was painting the mural outside, um, and the whole space was just abandoned and leaking and dirty. And Insane 51 was there painting inside,
Yeah.
still like a really young kid, you know?
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Yeah.
I know the work. I don't know them personally.
A nice friend. We became good friends, but and yeah, so and that was my start at the museum, which was
Got it.
far from opening a museum in 2016. And
Yeah.
then
Yeah. I
four
mean,
years later, we opened.
that's how usually those old warehouse spaces go. It's just not ideal when you start. So, from what it sounds like, even in the very beginning, it sounds like it was pretty easy to get a lot of artists on board.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know how it works in our scene. Like we are one big community. Once you're in it, and you know a lot of people. People are traveling mostly to Europe in summer anyway to go to different festivals to do paid commissions and stuff like that, or just hang out with friends that are living here. And yeah, like if Instagram is amazing for this to just track down who's around and to just reach out to them.
Yeah.
And the idea was always there to build the biggest street art museum in the world already in 2016, 17. But yeah, it was just like some words on paper, and an
Yeah.
image,
Yeah.
and hotel to you can actually see the hotel in the back.
Yeah.
That's the
Mhm.
hotel where all the artists are staying, and just our free like our friendships that connected us together, and then artists were mostly yeah happy to join and come
Got
to
it.
Amsterdam, see the city, and paint the canvas inside the museum.
Yeah, got it. I should have said this in the very beginning because I didn't know this, as dumb as this is, and I don't think a lot of my English speaking listeners will. Strat
Hmm.
means street. So
Ah,
Strat
yeah,
Museum is street museum. I dude, I
yeah,
read that. I'm like, yeah, fucking course it is. I had no idea. But sorry, that's just so dumb that
yeah.
I wanted to say that earlier and I forgot to.
Yeah, no, yeah, of course. Well, there's also a personal story about the Straat. We'll get back to that later, but
Well, tell me now. I think it's a good time to
oh
hear it.
yeah, sure, yeah, yeah, of course. Otherwise, we're just putting everything to later in the
Yeah.
conversation. I got back to the museum, and the team was really small. It was always almost like, are we going to continue this or not? and then there was this agency suggesting names to me, like for what the name of the museum should be. Um, and the guy of the agency that was suggesting the names to me now is the managing director of the museum. And one of the names that he suggested was Straat, and we really liked the name back then. And eventually, I picked the name Straat as the name for the museum. And well, that's why I also just I'm wearing
Yeah.
the sweater to just show you. But of course, it's a mirror. But I already said, like, if you look the other way, you will read art in the word Straat. And
Oh.
if you just twist the R, it will become more easy to read that it says art. But then my brother drafted the twisted R in the logo.
Uh-huh.
So I in the end decided on the name, and my brother came up with the idea of the twisted R. And yeah, until today, that's how you write it and how you call the museum.
That's
But
I didn't even realize that. That's smart. I like that.
yeah, yeah.
Very,
So and
very
it
cool.
also looks like it's an acronym for something bigger, right?
It does. I had
Like
no clue.
yeah. So it looks very institutional
Yes.
and sort of like an acronym,
Mhm.
and it stands for the Dutch word for street,
Yep.
and you can read art in it. So there's a lot in that one word. But of course, also back then when the agency suggested the names to me, and I thought like, okay, it should be Straat. I also checked it with some artists I called Findeck,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Finbar, a good friend of mine, and I just asked him like, hear me out, like the word straat, is that like for you something to understand that it means street? And he started laughing. He was like, of course, dude, like of course that should be the Dutch word for street, because a lot of Dutch is very similar to English.
Yeah.
So and then I thought like if it's easy for people to make that connection between straat and street, with so many museums in the Netherlands with Dutch names, then it should be something that we can move forward with. And yeah, I mean, like it's a very international art form, uh, a global art form, with so many artists involved. But we should also be proud that it's in the Netherlands, and that's why we,
Yeah.
we gave it the Dutch name. Yeah,
Yeah, dude, I remember like fuck when you guys opened, everybody on earth was talking about you guys. So, I
yeah,
mean, it makes sense it's there too. Like even how you said earlier about oh, the public, was really receptive and they like this. Like there's a lot of places here in America that like this wouldn't fly. Like it's still there's still where I'm from, it's still hard to paint a mural. I'm from Pennsylvania, which is the state below New York. A little smaller.
right.
There's no fucking way you can like have a street art museum there. That's really cool. Let's
Mm,
talk about you, man.
yeah,
Let's talk about you a little
yeah,
bit. So you
right.
signed on really early, and like we said earlier, you are the curator of the Strot. That's how you
Yeah,
pronounce it. Okay, and I
yeah,
I
it's
got
very
this
well done. Yeah.
offline. You can piggyback off this. I just typed into Google, what's a curator do? A curator often faces high levels of responsibility and can experience pressure to keep exhibitions not only fresh and engaging, but also aligned with current socio-political expectations.
Wow.
That's what a curator does in a museum. So, I mean, go ahead
that's
now.
that's that's me.
Yeah,
Yeah, well, I mean, I didn't even know this. That's a great summary of the things that I do. Yeah, I'm actually the head curator of the museum, Highland. I'm not sure if you know him. He curates the gallery. We also have an inside gallery. So that's what makes me the head curator of the museum, and I indeed select all the artists that we showcase in the museum. So everything on show, the exhibition there, is drafted by me.
hmm
I'm in touch with all the artists, um, and yeah, I'm in their direct contact. I think about the creative side of things together with the creative director,
yeah,
um, and we think of future alliances also with other organizations, street art related, globally.
uh
So,
huh,
for example, next month I'm going to Hong Kong to do a couple of talks at the HK Walls Festival. Later this year, probably going to Brazil to work with the Nalata Festival. So it doesn't really stop with only curating at the museum itself, but that's basically what you just put like in a
Yeah.
short summary.
Uh-huh.
That's what I do.
Were
But
you
yeah,
were you a painter? Are you a painter? Like, how did you get into this stuff?
yeah. So I studied medicine, which is
Perfect. Of course you did. All
of
right.
course. So that's yeah, that's so for everyone listening at home right now, just study medicine. That's your way into becoming the curator of a street art museum.
Totally.
You're doing just fine. No, so yeah, I studied medicine for quite some time. My yeah, my background is that I wanted to be of importance to others, and back in the days when I was 17, 18, I didn't know better than I need to study medicine, which in the beginning was fine, which was great, was exciting, but at some point I felt like my motivation is lacking, and it's just being something that I have to do instead of that I love to do.
Hmm.
So I finished my bachelor's, needed some new excitement, some new input, some new inspiration, and I studied a master's in Berlin, international health, so more focused on NGOs, Red Cross, UNICEF, and stuff. I was already a bit into street art. I mean, like I knew of Banksy, Invader, Shepard Fairey. I mean, the bigger guys, you know, like
Yeah, of course.
I was into Banksy far before Instagram was there, so I was already visiting London to check out his latest works. To just take a picture and that's it, like
Yeah.
nothing else. Just take a picture or find an invader. Okay, the invader is there. Amazing. For me, it was like exciting.
Yeah.
Like rest of the family, they were okay. So and now what
Whatever.
do we do? No, no, that
Yeah.
that was it.
Yeah. Wow. Great.
This was this was exciting.
Yeah. No,
No,
absolutely.
okay.
Yeah. I remember those days in the
So
early beginning, like you'd spend all fucking day trying to find one little thing and you'd find it and
right.
you'd be so happy, but no one else, like we just fucking walked all over the
No,
city. Yeah.
yeah. So I mean, like that was before going to Berlin. I walked through London with my uncle for an hour because Banksy made a work the week before. If graffiti changed anything, it would be illegal. That was the quote
Hmm.
with Little Red. And I thought, like, this is my chance to see a real Banksy. And we were walking for an hour, like with Google Maps, finding location. And then we got there, and my uncle really said, like, okay, so this is it. Like, what's so special about it? But yeah, for
Yeah.
me, it was like something amazing. And then I went to Berlin. I studied the Masters International Health. And of course, like there was a lot back in the days still, but back in the days there was a lot of graffiti and street art going on. Berlin was like thriving. It was like hot for our scene, and especially because the group of students was really international. No one was really into partying.
Hmm.
I had to find other ways to have a good time during the weekends, and I just started to cycle around on my bicycle and just explore one neighborhood after another. And I started to take pictures of street art, just to archive it and to share with my brother. And this was 2013, 14. He told me like, yeah, why don't you put it on Instagram and just share it with others?
Yeah.
Which I didn't really think of, but I thought like, okay, well, whatever. Maybe people will be excited about seeing street art on Instagram. I had no idea about Martha Cooper or whatever. I had no idea. Just sharing my images of what my bad pictures of street art and graffiti with mostly friends without any hashtags or
Yeah.
I don't know, like low pixel images. And then one guy reached out to me when I had like maybe 100 followers, and he said like, "Hey, I like the way you take your pictures, and I see you're a fan of Alice Pasquini. You know her?
No, I don't. I have no idea who that is.
Okay, she's a female artist from Italy.
Okay.
And I was like, yeah, he wrote me in the direct message, and I was like, yeah, I'm a fan of her work. And he said, like, she's painting right now in Berlin. And he shared the location with me, and I thought, like, okay, this was like late evening. Tomorrow I'm going there. I had a week off
Yeah.
of my masters, and tomorrow I'm going there, and I'm going to meet her. Pretty much just a fanboy, just nothing more. Just going there, and I got there early in the morning, and got disappointed because I saw the wall. It looked finished. Went back to
Mm,
my apartment 2 hours later with the subway back and forth. I wrote the guy like, listen, thanks for the heads up, but I think she already finished. And I saw the wall, and uh, maybe better next time. And he was like, well, dude, like you already went. Like she's Italian, she would not be there at 10 in the morning.
yeah.
Maybe try it again. And I thought, like, like, and that decision of going back again basically just changed everything afterwards, because did go back to the mural, and at that exact moment she arrived together with a boyfriend, and we started talking. I joined her for the day. I helped her. My German is and was better than her German, so I got her a letter. I got her some water. I got some help. And I just had a good time to just be there with them
Yeah.
the whole day in the cold at this wall that she painted. And at the end of the day, she and her boyfriend invited me to go for dinner. And I stayed long the whole week. I showed them around Berlin. Um, she also makes the little stencils, so we just found like locations where she could do the little stencils. At the end of the week, she made me a work to thank me for the week. I got really excited already about this, but she also invited me. She said, like, whenever you're in Rome, uh, you're more than welcome to stay with us. And
Wow.
I felt it, like the whole hospitality, and sort of like by then the second social network that I have, besides like my normal friends from back in the days,
Yeah.
just started. And like 1 or 2 months later, I indeed went to Rome, and I visited Alice, and I met so many people since, just by this passion. Um, and going back to this friend that suggested, right now he's a friend, but suggested like you need to meet Alice. Um, he reached out to me, and he said, like, okay, in a couple of weeks after she painted there, a couple of weeks later, he came to Berlin, and he said, like, now you can show me around, because he's also a street art photographer. Now you can show me around all the places where I can find the newest works of Alice. That's the least you can do for me, giving the heads up that she was there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's a long story, yeah. I mean, like, if
No,
you if
I
you
no,
want to
I
do,
think that's I honestly
yeah,
it's a very good story. I mean,
yeah,
that's pretty typical of how we all got into it, but that's a nice story.
yeah.
Like
Yeah,
just getting
so
to be with an
I
artist.
will just try to wrap things up with it. But he gave me we walked around a day in Berlin, and he made some suggestions for me to improve my Instagram.
Mhm.
And that's why it's really important that I continue to talk a little bit, because he said, like, back in the days, the hashtag street art was like the archive of all the pictures that people were posting about street art, like no clue, just street art, put it on
Yeah.
Instagram. But like right now, my head is like an encyclopedia for, like, this was painted by you or by any other artist in Los Angeles or in Detroit or whatever. I knew all the works, all the locations, everything. And
Yeah.
just every day, all day, I was like crediting the artist in post of random people. And by doing so, like, these people thought, like, finally now I know the artist, so I will follow the artist.
Yeah.
I'll follow this David guy, whoever he is, because apparently he knows a lot about street art.
Uh-huh.
But what I didn't really think of, like, all the artists got the notifications and also started following me and were reaching out, like, hey, dude, like, I don't know why you're doing this or who you are, but like, thanks for all the credits that you're giving on Instagram.
Yeah.
Um, they reached out to me, they said works, and we became friends by just sharing that passion with each other, and caring about, like, giving credits to something that's happening in the street and that might be gone the week after.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, That's that's a good story. It's pretty typical. That's how a lot of us get involved with all this stuff.
Yeah,
That's cool, man. So, okay, so
yeah.
you're in, but that doesn't explain how you became the curator
No,
of the
I
Strat.
know.
So how'd that
I
happen?
know the story is longer. I got back after my masters in Berlin to Rotterdam, the city where I live. Um,
Uh huh.
and I did another master's, of course, in healthcare management because that's what you do, just another master's. And when I finished it, my passion for street art was already through the roof. You know, I was traveling every weekend, taking pictures, going to Belgium, Germany, England, just by myself, meeting artists, or just going for a couple of pictures of murals. And at that moment, I met the previous curator after I did my second master's during an opening of Cranio here in Amsterdam.
Mm-hmm.
And we started talking, and well, I figured he was the curator of the upcoming museum, and he asked me who I was. So I told him the story I just shared with you, and my Instagram is Drews86, and I credit a lot of artists. And he said, like, you know what, you can come and check the museum, and I want to show it to you. We open next year, so then everyone will see it. That was the plan, 2017. Um, and I started working part time at a pharmaceutical company already, and he offered me to come work with him to curate the artist on the other days of the week.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, like, you know, like I'm so passionate about this art form. I know a lot of artists. Let's do this.
Yeah.
So I worked there for 2 years. Unfortunately, then we split ways. It didn't really work out between me and the previous curator. Um, I did curate a lot already back then together with him. I worked in the meantime for child protection. So yeah, a heavy job. And I started my own agency for urban art to still have that focus on coming back to the scene at some point and work with artists again.
Yeah.
Um, we're now the end of 2019 in my story, and he got kicked out by the owner of the museum.
Do you want to tell
Um,
us any reason why? Like, you don't have to. I mean, it might be personal, but
yeah, it's a long story. It's a long story. There are different sides of it,
there always
but
are.
I think like yeah, I mean like with a project like this, especially from coming from this scene and making something like this worthwhile and professional. It has a lot of ups and downs, and
Yeah.
let's leave it with that. You know, I
Okay.
think like yeah, I mean there are a lot of stories to it, but the owner of the museum, or back then not yet a museum, had two choices: either he quit and he just has the flea market, or he tries to get another curator and with him or her try to open a museum. So
Got it.
since I already invited like half of the artists anyway, he asked me to come back,
Yeah.
and we had a whole really heavy half year um, within the scene, within the preparations with COVID, with everything that was required to be ready for it. But in the end, on the 9th of October in 2020, we opened the museum, and yeah, since that day, I'm officially the head curator of the museum.
Got it.
Um, but we, as my colleague always quotes Michelle Obama, we had to go low to go high,
Yeah.
and that's that's
That's true.
that's basically what I had to do. I had to go really low
Yeah.
to go high, and that's what we're enjoying right now.
Very cool. Did you
Yeah,
take any math classes when you were in school for medicine?
math classes.
Don't worry, it's gonna come back around. I just want to know if you have
Okay,
any. Did you?
no, like already classes during high school, you mean, or
Just like, well, I'm asking because like from what you're saying, it doesn't sound like you have a lot of education with math, and I don't either. Because I
oh
wanted to talk
math?
to you about
Okay, sorry.
math, like maths.
Mathematics. Yeah,
Yeah,
sorry. No, yeah. Yeah, a little bit. I hated it.
yeah, me too.
You know,
Don't you have?
yeah.
Isn't part of your job kind of like, okay, the museum has this much of a budget. but we need to put on this like I know we've had Kaplan Bunce Capaci on here. You guys did an
Mm.
indigenous artist.
Yeah, yeah,
You do Shepherd
yeah.
Fairy. These things aren't free to put on, right? So like, are you the
No,
person managing this money? Like, we need to put on
no,
this
thank God I'm
exhibition.
not.
You're not doing that. Because
No, thank
also
God I'm not doing this. Yeah.
our friend Louis Springbricks was, I think he told me that the building isn't air conditioned or heat controlled, right?
No, no.
Because that would be a huge expense too, right? Because it's a huge building.
Well, yeah, yeah, no, definitely. No, thank God I'm not doing this. You know, I'm
Okay.
horrible with finances. So I think, like, also in your summary of what does a curator do, it was also not highlighted. Then I'm doing the finances, if
Yeah,
I
I didn't know
remember
if you had
correctly.
to
What
or
you mean?
not. Yeah.
No, thank
Okay.
God not. No, so we really had to find our way in growing the team with the right people. And, I mean, we came from far, you know, like we didn't have uh, like the opportunity of just getting people from another street art museum. Hey, we are building also like a street art museum. You want to
Yeah.
come work with us? You know, like it was never
Yeah.
done before, not in this skill. So we have people from all kinds of different expertise
Okay.
that joined the team, and uh, you know, like I think with me, with working with medicine, with child protection, what's really a heavy job, taking children out of their families and putting them in foster care and stuff like this, and the different experiences that I had over other fields really came in handy when joining the team again and becoming the head curator of the museum, because it's tough, you know, like you have to deal with like lots of different people and also with artists uh, that can be tough sometimes
Egos.
or against.
Egos. Yeah. Personalities. Do you
Well, I mean,
also?
like egos, but yeah, it egos, definitely egos in some way, but like also before opening the museum, like we were going to make this big art form that belongs to the street, and we were going to put it inside of a museum, you know.
Yeah.
So there were like a lot of pre-assumptions about doing this for commercial purposes or not the right purposes, or yeah, what's the whole deal behind it or whatever. So I had to convince a lot of artists and people in the scene that we were
Yeah.
doing it the right way.
I'm glad you said
um
that because that actually leads into the next kind of things I want to talk to you about. Like this is towards the end of
mhm,
the talk here, and I mean, even like the minute that like we were talking at Art Basel, you know, and
yeah.
the second you mention who you are as an artist, your head just starts asking questions and like so and also, you know, you have 180
Mhm,
works in there, but that's a lot. But there's also
mhm.
probably thousands of other artists that would love to be in your museum, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
this is now the point where I ask you about that stuff because I think a lot of artists listening are like, well, why am I not in that museum? So question
yeah.
one, what is
Mm.
the process that you guys decide what artists get to show a piece at the museum?
Yeah, that's it's a good question. And referring to your question and saying like there are probably 1,000 artists that want to join the museum. Uh, it's true. It's very difficult because there are not so many places to highlight the works that we have on show. I mean,
Mhm.
180 sounds like a lot, but it's like really nothing. And you also want to give them some time to be seen by the visitors or by our guests. So me being the curator is basically just being able to say no to a lot of artists, and in that making the selection of what we can and what we can't have in the museum.
Yep.
I curate based on graffiti and street art. Right now, it's mostly it's only almost everything is street art. Only like a little bit of graffiti. We're trying to change the ratio of that more equally. I wouldn't say, but like also to give graffiti the stage that it deserves. Um, like gender, different styles, different backgrounds. Yeah, there's so much, like there's so many criteria to think of while curating the artists that come to the museum. Like we want to have all the different continents presented, like different minorities. You know, there are a lot of things that come to mind while explaining to you like what it takes to be the curator and to say no to people. Um, we have the process for the artist is like I have a big wish list, um, and besides that, a big waiting list of artists that we want to invite. Um, yeah, we only have so many spots within the museum.
Of
Um,
course.
so I'm also asking artists to please be patient. I think I can use you as an example, because I think at that moment I lost you because I already the process how it goes right now is already in November of 23. I already have my list of artists that I want to invite for 24.
Hmm.
And I mean, no one really knows from that list that I'm going to ask them, but that's the list of artists that I presented to the management team within the museum, and that's what I'm going to work on. And when we spoke in art in Miami during Art Basel, we also definitely spoke about like coming to the Netherlands. And I already said like I need to watch and see if that's possible, but probably it's going to be 25. And that's how it works, like if people can have like the bigger picture for the long run, because our aim with Strat is to be here for like another 50, 60, 100 years.
Hmm.
Then please be patient with me and understand that, yeah, I can also only say yes to so many artists a year to come and paint in the museum.
Yeah.
Um, but it's
You're a
it's
museum.
it's fun. Eh?
I said you're a museum. It's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
So like you just have to be
No.
patient.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I want to make as many people as possible happy, and
Yeah.
invite them to the museum, but it needs to fit in a bigger story, and that's basically like one big diverse story within like under one roof.
Yeah.
Because that's basically what we enjoy with us in the community and in the scene. Like everything is linked to each other. Like okay, graffiti. It started with graffiti. It started like back in the days in the United States, but like a lot of artists that are right now painting inside the museum were inspired by those guys and girls. So I mean, to just highlight it within one big space is what we really try to go
Yeah.
for.
So
Um,
let's move
yeah,
on to some other questions. So for the artists that do get selected, okay, and
yeah.
they get contacted, we want to show your work. Are those artists getting paid?
So yeah, that's a good question. That's something that we're working on right now. We do pay the flight, the materials, the stay here at the hotel.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, we can't offer a fee yet to the artist because of the skill of the project. It's definitely something that we're working on right now in order to make the museum work in the long run, and to highlight these artists and pay them the money that they deserve. We always try to figure out ways of making money with the artists while they're here. So we always do print releases or we combine it with gallery shows. We have a big Straat shop. We can offer them to sell their merchandise over there or combine merch together.
Hmm.
We also have an agency right now with the museum. So we really actively are looking for paid commissions for the artist while they're here, or to get them back and return the favor, or how to put
Yeah.
it. Um, so yeah, I mean, like like the moment I got here, we were almost dead as a museum. So we came from far,
Yeah.
and we're not there yet. As in, like everything is just set in stone and amazing. But the will and the passion to make that all happen is definitely there, and is
Yeah.
already there in some ways, but can be still better in the future.
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, I think just speaking maybe for myself, but I think a lot of artists can know that you guys have the best of intentions and your heart's in the right place and like there's passion. They're like, as an artist, we get so many emails from companies that like the people don't give a fuck about art. They just want to make money off us. But you
You
guys are the
know.
exact opposite. So that wasn't like a loaded question, like how much are they getting paid? I was
No,
just
no, no, no.
curious.
But it's a fair
Yeah.
question, and
Hmm.
and like loaded question. That's a nice way of saying it.
Yeah.
Like for me, as being the curator of the museum, I'm also the face to so many people of the museum, for the museum. So I mean, yeah, not everyone is your friend, and
Yeah.
I'm also an easy target for people to attack.
Yeah, you're the face.
So
Yeah.
yeah, like, so I've got all kinds of questions or comments or discussions or threats or whatever
Wonderful.
from,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, and yeah, like my skin also got like thicker and became like elephant skin,
Yeah.
and being able to deal with those things. And it's amazing to hear from you and from, and with you, hopefully with a lot of other people. Like, we know you have the best intentions, but like we're now 3.5 years down the road. um Definitely in the beginning, like we still had to like prove ourselves, and
Hmm.
to show that we had the best intentions. And it's always easy to shoot on someone, like if you don't really know like their intentions
Yeah.
or the ideas behind it. And definitely back in the beginning, and in the early days, I really had to convince a lot of people, like, please trust like what we're doing here, and that we have the best intentions, uh, not only for the scene but also for the artist involved. So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Got it. I imagine the work's on for sale, right? Because I mean,
no,
you're probably still too
no.
early. What are you gonna do? Okay, hypothetically,
Hmm.
Invader. I'm just picking Invader. He gave you a piece super early on, and now you've had it in your collection for 5 or 6 years. Maybe he's
Hmm.
giving you a new piece. Do you guys have any plan of what you're going to do with older works? Like I know you're rotating and storing now, but is the
Yeah,
plan to just keep them forever or what?
basically, we really are working on an archive.
Hmm.
So I think one of the aims for the museum as a knowledge institute is that we have the works even in storage, like
Yeah.
not on show, but then still in storage. We have a long lasting loan with the artist, so it's still their property, but we have it here, so that's
Yeah.
25 years. And with that, we can call it part of our collection. With that, we have like advantages of becoming part of the museum association, things like
Hmm.
this. So yeah, that's not maybe completely answering your question, but we try
No, it
to
does. It
keep the,
absolutely does.
yeah, yeah. We don't have a work by Invader yet. So Invader, if you're,
I picked
I
him
have
because everybody
my,
knows that name. Yeah.
yeah,
I
no, no,
figured.
no, of course, like, but yeah, we have the works, and we try to respect them as best as we can. And
Yeah.
yeah, our storage is also just in the museum behind the other canvases.
Yeah.
And we keep the works, like we're expanding our storage. And at some
Yeah.
point,
Yeah.
people within the team are going to complain, like, yeah, storage is full, what do
Yeah.
we do
Absolutely.
now?
Yeah. Yeah.
We're not throwing them away, or we're not selling them or anything. So yeah, we need to think about it, because that's what museums do, and
Yeah.
that's what museums have. They have a stories with other artworks that we don't have on show.
We could always, I mean, I don't want to give you ideas here. Like I've interviewed the Andy Warhol Museum. It's from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Mm,
That's where I'm from. I've interviewed them. I talked to them a lot, and obviously they're the hub for Andy Warhol works. So like, if a gallery in Saudi Arabia wants to do a show, the Warhol Museum will ship work to Saudi Arabia. They'll ship it to Paris.
mm,
I imagine you guys in the future could do something very similar. Oh, the Straught's going to partner up with
yeah,
somewhere in Paris, and we're gonna send a collection of our work there. Like you guys, I mean, that could be an
yeah,
option too. I imagine down the road too.
definitely.
Yeah,
Yeah, uh, I mean, there's nothing drafted yet, but of course, these are the ideas are there. You know.
yeah.
Uh,
Uh,
yeah,
I want to ask you one more question before let's take a little tour of the museum on your computer
yeah,
here. But the last
sure.
question, just for fun, this is just a fun question. We
Mm.
mentioned dancing around like different artist personalities and egos. Any fun little stories? You don't have to name a name, but like any like, oh my god, this was a nightmare to deal with, or like just something fun like that, like all the work arrived damaged or what, you know what I mean? Like you can't. There's
Well,
so many personalities.
Okay, well, that's really interesting that what you just said, because all the artists come to the museum to paint inside the museum.
Yeah.
So
All
like
right.
works don't arrive damaged
I was
because
just trying to
they
think.
make
Yeah.
it. No, but
Anyone
that's
shows up
something
that's
I
like
didn't
hard to deal with.
mention. So that's, yeah, no, of course, there are artists that were very difficult to deal with, and I will not mention any names, but like, of course, I can think of stories about this, but I think for the listeners at home, it's very interesting to know that like all the artists that we actually invite them to come to Amsterdam to
Yeah.
paint the canvas inside the museum. Most of the time, when the visitors are visiting the museum, so they have the whole experience of what it takes for an artist to paint the canvas. Yeah, there are a lot of funny stories. I mean, like, um, most of the artists that I invite are before they come or during or after they become my friends. So it's, I don't need to explain it to you. So of course you have a lot of funny things that you experience while they are here.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, and I think that's also something that we really need to consider and think of, like, with us being a museum, like the stakes are high. Artists are, when they arrive here at the museum, they are challenged. Like they want to do their best, and sometimes that, yeah, doesn't go to plan, and then people get stressed and
I would
paint and
imagine.
repaint and yeah, paint and repaint and repaint the canvas.
Yeah.
And from that specific person, we never showed the work in the museum.
Oh, really? It was that
So
you just
yeah.
wow. God, I for everyone listening, if you're not in the if you're just a fan and you're not an artist, I could imagine if you guys asked me to make you a work for the museum and I get to do it in my studio, I can take forever. I can go back, fix
Mhm.
make. But if I know I have to fly to Amsterdam and I only have like 5 days to make a work, I am fucking stressed out of my mind to make. And it's going in a museum, dude. There actually is a lot of
Yeah.
pressure now that you say that. To fuck, man.
Yeah, maybe that's also not really. This was like in the early days of the preparations,
Uh huh.
but I think, like, yeah, maybe that's also not so fair to say that, but the circumstances are completely different right now. Like, the roof got renovated. We have an amazing space, an amazing team. All the preparations are there when artists are coming. Like everyone is feeling very comfortable about painting here, and get the support that they need. So I wouldn't say like there's any pressure while artists are there.
Yep.
It's a compliment for us as a museum that when the artists arrive and walk in the museum, that they're challenged, that they want to outdo themselves in doing something that they never did before,
Hmm.
in doing like a new kind of style that they were dreaming of for a long time, and think of us as the right place to show that to our people, like our guests, for the first time. That's an enormous compliment that we really are appreciating a lot in the artists that are joining us. And yeah, I mean, of course, so many stories pop to mind when you ask me, like, tell me a funny story or something that went wrong. But yeah, I think in the end, like, we know that all the artists are human, and
Yeah.
that's what we are also. We're all human together, and by just sharing that Staat DNA, that Staat family DNA, um, you always find common ground with the artist in painting here at the museum.
Yeah.
And by just not having so many pre-assumptions about an artist or stories that another artist shared with me about that artist, but just play open card with them. And sometimes they are more difficult, or they have egos, or they prefer to have like a tea and don't meet me for a week. It's all fine, like, as long as they're happy, as long as they're happy by being here and by painting something for the museum, and the visitors can see that process, and we have a lovely work that we can add to the collection at the end of the week, mostly, then everyone is happy. you know.
Absolutely.
And that, forget about that one example. Yeah, it's something that happens down the road, and those are the stories that stick. um, but that doesn't really do justice to all the amazing artists that we have here, um, and that I continue to talk with and to share the experiences that the guests have with their artworks in the museum, because it's not like you come here for a week and then it's finished, like I'm already in touch with you, for example, right now, while you're coming to paint, hopefully in 2025. And also by then, it's not the end of the road. It's just part of the whole community that we both love, and we'll be in touch in 26 and 27, and you will hear about us or from us like many many times
Yeah,
after you've painted in the museum. And it's a thrill. It's very exciting to be part of that.
absolutely. Well, David, for let's wrap this up here for everyone listening, just the
Sure.
audio podcast. But for everyone who's watching the video, why don't we take a little quick tour of the museum? So are you on your laptop or your phone? How are we going to do this?
I'm on my laptop,
Okay.
and on my phone I can switch on the lights, because
Oh,
as you
perfect.
can see already, it's dark.
Yeah.
So for the people, so this is the museum and my office. For the people that have no clue what they're going to see, we're a museum in Old Shipwharf. There's still a colleague working here.
Hi. Hello.
uh, he's saying hi. um, so it's 8,000 meters square meters,
Jesus. That's
and it's
humongous.
completely, look, it's
It's dark.
completely dark right now. But I can
Yeah.
switch the lights on my phone, which is going to be like a great effect that I can give to you all there. Okay, wait.
If it
So
works.
no, it works. 3, 2, 1. It doesn't.
Didn't work.
Didn't work. There you go.
Hey, there it is. Amazing.
There you go. Okay, so I hope you can see
Damn,
it
every piece is
properly.
lit really well.
Yeah. So yeah, we're a museum. So I mean, like we
You
try
have to
to
be.
respect
Yeah.
every. Yeah, try to respect all the artworks like really, really well
Hmm.
and really properly.
Amazing.
So just for the people at home, like this one, like all of the bigger canvases that you see are 9 meters wide by 5 meters high.
Wow.
Um, yeah, which is like huge, and which is
Yeah.
like the size of a proper mural outside. So
Hmm.
I'm just going to walk to the other side, because it's actually bigger than what you see right now, because there is another half.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's really huge.
Yeah.
Like, so you have a big one there, which is 15 meters high.
Jesus.
Um, yeah, which is I think like 50 feet. Am I saying that
Uh,
right?
15 meters is 45 feet.
Yeah.
Yeah. So pretty close.
Um, yeah. So I mean, like
Yeah,
these
that's
are all the
incredible.
works.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so for the people at home, like what I'm working on, curational wise, like in this first corner, you see a lot of abstract works. Not all of
Uh-huh.
them, but there are a lot of abstract works there. And
Yeah.
this whole first corner is going to be like abstract and post graffiti. So I curate within this corner all of these artists.
Hmm.
So um, yeah, I'm not sure. Like I'm always name dropping, so that I won't do that. But there are a couple of those artists coming here this year that will definitely paint in this corner.
Uh-huh.
And then in the second corner, there will be different artists, and then yeah, well, that's just part of the storytelling. The
Yeah.
stories need to fit with each other within the museum. So yeah, you can see a little bit over here. Yeah, the 180
Very cool.
artists that we show.
Yeah. Very cool. We'll
right
we'll
now.
also during the interview here, we'll put up images so people can see some of the works, and
Yeah,
there's a lot of cool photos. That's cool, David. I think that's pretty good. So thank you so much for your
sure.
time, dude. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure, and it's always fun to talk with friends and to share the story of Staat. Yeah, always happy. I'm always here.
Right on, dude. Well, thank you so much for your time. I'll talk to you next time.
Sure. Right.
All right, buddy. See
Bye.
ya. All right, everybody. I hope you enjoyed that. Maybe you have questions or opinions about what we talked about on this episode. Maybe you have your own questions about your art career or just looking for some advice. Shoot us an email and we'll answer your questions on a future episode. You can email us directly on our website, cleanbreakpodcast.com. And just a reminder that all our past episodes are available there, as well as a ton of free resources, guides, and tips on how to make more money with your art and get more people interested. This podcast is produced by Elijah Walsh, theme song by Ditch David, additional research by Ikram Dadar. I want to thank Patrick, Jason, and the Always Art team. My name is Matt Gondek. I'll crash you next time.